Well, everybody, today we are doing What If Deku Had a Shadow Clone Quirk, Part 2. Uh, Thank you for the support on, Part 1. Thank you to the one person who did. I have to admit, guys, I have lost a lot of viewers, I feel. And odds are, most of the people who do watch my videos immediately are probably notifications. So thank you to them. And even then, our average view time is 8 minutes. And it's hard, guys, when your videos are an hour and they watch 8 minutes of it. If you guys lose interest, well, do another what if in the comments. I won't take it personally, because you could recommend something. If you want me to do that, I will. I could do a Naruto what if or My Hero. And if you really want me to, I can try and get a new anime. But it has to be something that's not like One Piece, where it's still going and we're going to hit 1,000 episodes soon. We're not doing that. So yes. That's all I have to say. So, onto the video. Okay, everybody. So, we continue off as Izuku gets rid of the 28 days because, I'm gonna be dead honest with y'all, that was filler. And, that's it. I'm sorry for yelling. Anyway, so, Deku, the very day that UA starts, he gets out of bed, gets dressed, takes a shower, all that jazz. And as he's walking out, he greets his mother and his father. Y'all can't ship him now. He's not a fatherless child. He's not a shonen protagonist anymore, by the way. He's a father. If y'all were still wondering. Anyway, so Deku, as he runs towards UA, because he notices that he only has 5 minutes. And he quickly arrives at the gate. And as he's rushing in, he trips. And he is actually caught by someone's quirk. As he looks over, and it's the girl the other day who tried to do the exact same thing. Except she actually did it this time. So he looks to her and says, "Oh, do I know you?" As she says, "Oh, yeah. We were in the exact same scenario before, 30 days ago." As he says, "Oh, right, you're the brunette." And she says, "Happy to be called that. Anyway, we should be getting to class soon. We're late." As he says, "Oh, great." As she drops him quickly and bolts into the building, as he quickly follows behind her. Little did Izuku know, that was not a good idea. As he follows her into the building. But he quickly notices this is not what he expected at all, as he sees lockers all across the walls. And then they quickly arrive at the 1A room. And as they jump in, he notices there's just a chair in the middle. As she says, "Oh, I guess the teacher didn't set anything up. Weird." As she says, "Well, take a seat." As he says, "Oh, okay." As he quickly takes a seat. As he blinks, and after that, he gets quickly tied to the chair. And says, What's happening?" As he quickly looks over towards his side and sees the girl. And she says, "This is such a useful quirk for trapping young children like you." As Izuku realizes how late he'll be. And she says, "Well, you can't do anything now." As she grabs a knife from a tray. And she says, "I'll start with your nails. Don't worry. It'll be quick." No, it won't, actually. It'll be slow and painful. I can't wait to see this feeling again. As the blonde, who quickly unveiled her skin, said, I can't wait to see you bleed. As she said that blissfully, looking like a schoolgirl. As Izuku says, no. Oh, what a horrible day to start off with. As he nudged his fingers together and said, clone! As 10 clones appear around him and they start trying to fight the girl. But with her superior knife skills in every way, she eliminates all of them. And she says, can't let that happen. As she says, well, I'm sorry, kid, but you'll have to lose those hands of yours. As he says, no, this is not happening today. As he claps his hands together and makes 100 in the big room, which it was like a cafeteria sized. And she says, oh, well, I'm happy I have this machine, as it says, it says teleporter, and she presses on it and looks like, and him, Mr. Twice, as she presses the button and Twice quickly appears and says, what is it, Toka? Oh, you got one. Good job. Of course, I'm here. Oh, sorry, guys. As he says, what do you need my help with? And she says, well, Mr. Twice, I just wanted to know if you'd help me restrain him. He has a clone quirk similar to yours. And he says, oh, okay, Toga-chan. As he says, whatever. Because, split personality. And he walks over to Izuku and kicks him in the face. As Izuku takes it and says, fine. Clone. As he spawns 700 around them. And Twice says, oh my. As he quickly starts multiplying in numbers, as he got to 60 before all Izuku's clones charged and quickly dispelled all of them. With their immense physical strength and urgency to get to class, Izuku quickly fought the villain and even pinned down the original and unveiled his mask and beat him ruthlessly. As Himiko was also pinned to the wall, and they knocked her out. And as one of the clones of Twice was reaching for the teleport button for somebody, like Kirigiri, one of Izuku's clones roundhouse kicks him in the back of the skull, knocking him out. As Izuku gets his clones to untie him, and he does as he gets out of the building, and notices it was right next to Yue, conveniently. As Izuku said, of course. I'm 15 minutes late. As he quickly runs into the class. Well, no, he quickly runs through the gate and gets through the doors. And eventually he finds his class, but no one's there. As it says, if anybody arrives, meet us at Training Ground A. As Izuku quickly runs out there. As Aizawa looks behind them and says, oh, you're that kid. Well, give me a good excuse. Why are you late? As Izuku says, well, I was nearly killed. As all the students are shocked. And Bakugo says, like we'll believe that, you nerd. As Izuku says, I fought and defeated 2 villains. One was called Twice. And the other, Toga, I think? Yeah. They're at the building over. As Aizawa says, kid, there is no building over. As Izuku is shocked. And Aizawa said, you must be seeing things, kid. Don't lie to me. What actually happened? As Izuku says, no, I'm not joking. There was an actual school there. It could have been someone's quirk, I know that, but it looked so much like UA from the map I got. And Aizawa said, fine. Well, just come with us. We're doing a physical exam, as all the students are acceptant of that, as Izuku follows the boys of the group, and they lead him into a locker room where Izuku sees his name on one of the lockers and opens it to find his uniform, as he puts all that on and he goes outside to see his teacher. Okay. And yeah, Izuku quickly looks over to Aizawa and asks, so sir, what will we be doing today? As Aizawa says, well, problem child, we will be doing a physical exam, as I said. Since you did get a ton of points, to be fair, in our exam, and you were the most proficient in your ability for your quirk, and you were ranked number 1, I will allow you to go first in each of these exams. It'll be going from strongest to weakest in order. Students, if you remember from the exam, if you were the first one out, well, I'm sorry to say it to you, you'll be last for all of these, and you'll be gaining the most amount of attention because you need the most help. As Izuku smiles and says, well, happy to know. I'm the strongest. As Bakugo was angered at that. But, you know, he was second, so he was just a little more tolerant of it. So, as Izuku got up to the line, he gets 10 clones around him, as they all grab his arm, and as Izuku reels back, they follow it, and they all combine. Actually, no. As Izuku was about to throw it, he steps back quickly and says, sorry, I forgot I could do this. As he says, ultimate move, army, jutsu, super. As 2,000 clones around him appear. As Aizawa says, what are you doing, kid? As they all form into one, and then it fuses into Izuku. As Izuku says, already. As he throws his arm back and throws the ball as far as he could. And as Aizawa sees the ball quickly disappear, he looks at his meter and says, wow, that's shocking. Well, I can see it since you are clearly physically gifted, along with that being 2,000 of you in one. Well, I'm happy to say your distance was a whopping 5,824 meters, as everyone is immensely shocked, as Izuku says, that's awesome. And quickly, his power dispels from his right arm, and he collapses to the ground and says, I'm fine, as he goes to the back of the line and sits on the ground. And, you know, he kind of did amazing. But after everybody does go, along with Bakugo, who got the same exact margin, he watches as the brunette, quote-unquote, he saw earlier, throws the ball. Quite lightly, it looked like. But as the ball goes around 8 meters, it starts floating. And they notice it goes just too far. And Izuku can't even see it anymore. As Aizawa looks down and says, well, that's shocking. Infinity. As they're all shocked, and Bakugo says, how did she get infinity? As Aizawa says, well, it's in space, is why. As she says, release. As they see a little, star come in the sky. But it quickly dissipates because it was actually the baseball, but, you know, fire coming into the atmosphere, all that. Yeah. Be right back, guys. Okay, as I was saying, uh, yeah, well, that's basically it. As Uraraka walks back and smiles at Deku, as Deku looks at her cautiously and walks over and says, "And are you sure you're actually Ochaku Uraraka?" As she says, "Yeah, why?" As he says, "Well, the girl I was talking to, well, the villain I ran into earlier, actually had your... No. She could replicate appearances, it looked like. And it looked exactly like you. Which is weird. But I just hope we can get on the right foot." As he smiles at her and she blushes a little and says, "Yeah." And yeah, that's how the rest of the exam goes, as it would. But as we get to the second part of the exam, as Aizawa says, "Well, for phase 2 of our physical exam, we'll be seeing endurance." As everyone frowns and Izuku says, "So, what do you mean by that?" As Aizawa says, "Well, run with me." As they go into a tunnel as they start running. And it's similar to the Hunter x Hunter tunnel. As Izuku smiles because endurance was his thing. Because when he spawned a clone, it was not tired at all. It would completely replenish stamina. And with the learn, and with the move he learned on one of the last days, he was happy because he could just combine one clone into him, and he'd be fine. So he would run full speed, and he'd be right next to Aizawa the whole time. So, as they quickly clear one kilometer, they start running faster, as Aizawa slowly picks up the speed. And after 5 kilometers, lots of people start dropping. Like people like Mina, Aoyama, and Higakure. And, as people like that slowly drop, all the weaker ones do. And now it's the people who actually trained. And once they hit 20 kilometers, Bakugo drops out, and Momo. And also, as they hit 30, Shoto gets out, because that's how tired he was. But now, it's just him and Ida. Because, Ida has a speed quirk. You'd imagine he'd be pretty good at this. So, Aizawa says, "Well, you two, I'll meet you there. Whoever gets there first, you'll have half the homework today. But double the training." As Izuku smiles with glee, as he wanted to get a lot stronger. So Izuku quickly takes 10 clones into himself and bolts, basically. But Ida says this is too easy, as he quickly uses his engine burst. Not recipro burst, just, normal engine speed. As he quickly zooms past Izuku, and Aizawa starts seriously running. And once Ida gets to 70 kilometers of 80, his engines tire out, and he falls onto the ground as he sees a massive flight of stairs. As he says, "No." And, that. So as there had been a car following them who had slowly gathered people, and the car had stayed next to Aizawa. And as Ida starts climbing, at 75, he passes out. But Izuku, running as fast as he could, eventually gets to 80. With his full endurance, his full stamina still there, as he puts another clone into him, replenishing his energy, and passes the finish line. And after 2 hours, Aizawa with the car arrives. with everyone else on the car. Well, no, like in and on it, literally. As Aizawa says, "Dang, you have some stamina, kid. You're not even trying to catch your breath. That was 80 kilometers. That's a lot of miles, Mike. That's a lot of miles, kid." As Izuku smiles and says, "Yep, my quirk allowed me to make a clone, and since that clone has replenished energy, I would just fuse it into myself. And I have to do that a lot, so I ended up using around 700 clones today in this run alone." As Aizawa says, "Oh my, good job, kid. That takes a lot of guts and a whole lot of endurance. I'm proud of you." As he smiles, as Izuku says, "Thank you." And Mita gets off the car and says, "How? I gave up after 5 kilometers, and yet you are here unscathed at 80. I wonder if you could go to 100. As Izuku says, I don't know about that. I was already close to my limit at clones." As she says, "Oh, bummer." And yeah. So, the very next day, Aizawa and everybody arrive at school. And, as usual. So, Izuku quickly looks over towards his newfound friend, Ochako Uraraka, and Tenya Ida, because they seem to bond over hero training and, just basic hero stuff. Like, well, yeah, they were all just really nice people also. So, as they're all talking, Ochako actually reveals that she wanted to be a hero for the money, but not, like, just for themselves, but so she could support her parents with money. And Izuku thought that was fine because, it was for her parents. She did have a actual reason. Unlike some people, though. And, yeah, so this class, though, to Aizawa, was different. No one was clearly greedy. But, well, there was people like Sero and Denki that were stupid. Completely. And people like Bakugo who got mad all the time for almost no reason at all. But Aizawa would mold and groom these kids to become just the best pro heroes they could be. But there were some students he had absolutely no hope in. People like Minoru Mineta, as he looks at the file, and Toru Hagakure, as he had the most confidence in the 1 and 2, as you'd imagine. Izuku Midoriya and Shoto Todoroki, as after the endurance test, 10 whole kilometers was a lot more endurance than another person's, because that could mean the difference in chasing a villain down, a dangerous one. So, as this is happening, Bakugo in the other room is sizzling. He's absolutely furious that his teacher thinks what's his name? How did I forget Bakugo's name for Todoroki? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Was it half hot? No, it wasn't half hot, half cold. It was half and half, I think. Please correct me in the comments. I have no idea. This is one of the few times I actually want to be corrected. So, Izuku and everybody arrive at class. But as Aizawa had still not shown up, they were getting a little worried. But that's when they hear a massive march through the halls as All Might arrives through the door saying, I'm coming through the door like a normal person. And everyone is shocked, like, oh my gosh, is that All Might? As Izuku's just flabbergasted, like, oh my gosh, it's All Might. And he'll be training us, it looks like. As All Might says, well, everybody, today we'll be doing hero versus villains training. And I'll be taking over for your teacher today. Well, let me get to know your names, as everyone says it. But when it gets to Izuku, as Izuku says his name, All Might gets shocked because he was the kid that brought back his part of One for All. And he knew this, so, you'd imagine special treatment and special training. Not in that way, not in that way. So, let me check how long we've been recording. We've hit 27 minutes. Quite happy. Probably not exactly 27, but something close to that. Anyway. So, as Izuku and everyone get into their hero costumes, as All Might had instructed, Izuku's, by the way, guys, had been a quite stretchy tracksuit for clones, and it was good for endurance. It wasn't the normal tracksuit that Inko wore because Izuku simply didn't have it made. Because if he did, I wouldn't want him to wear it because it is absolutely horrendous. Just saying, it looks exactly like All Might. And how did Inko make that? I want to know. How did Inko make that? It's odd. Anyway. So, as All Might starts talking, well, students, as you are all in your great hero costumes, I do want to say, for the hero versus villains training, to decide teams, we will be pooling. I forgot what it's called. I'm sorry. There's so many specific things in the story I am forgetting. Well, they were drawing something, guys. They were drawing balls from like a thing. Please, once again, tell me. Please. Anyway, so, as Izuku draws his, he gets F. As Uraraka was looking around and asking people if they had gotten F, as she goes over to him and said, do you have Team F? As he nods, and she says, oh, okay, that's great, because you're the strongest, right? As Izuku says, yeah, but you're the 7th. As she says, wait, how do you know that? As Izuku says, what do you mean, how? Aizawa announced it. As she says, oh, right, I forgot. As Izuku says, wait, how could you forget? I mean, yes, for me it's quite simple. I'm number 1. But even people like Mina remember that she got 14th. Like, wait a minute. As Uraraka says, what is it? As Izuku says, you're her. As Uraraka freezes, revealing half of a face of Toga. As Uraraka, quote-unquote, tackles Izuku to the ground. As Deku says, take this, as he uppercuts her. As All Might notices and says, chill down, kids, please. As Izuku says, she's a villain. As he kicks her in the stomach, revealing Toga. And I just realized. We're going to assume she did have clothes on the other time. I gave some bad imagery there. Just realized. So, as Himiko says, well, at least I'm cooler now. As All Might quickly rushes up to her, and as he's about to hit her, she responds with a portal suddenly, and as his Detroit Smash hits him in the gut, as Himiko says, I'm so happy I got these new quirks from the boss man. As she even had dark blue spots appearing on her skin as like early signs of potential Nomu. But we're not going to do that because we don't need to. I mean, after all, guys, Izuku's going to have 7 quirks soon in the manga. Spoiler warning. And you see, he's doing it fine. So, Izuku and All Might start fighting Himiko, along with the rest of the class, as she steps back and says, I'm so happy I have this power, as she makes black lightning and shocks Toru, as she gets electrocuted and falls to the ground, completely paralyzed everywhere. As she falls to the ground, all of her clothes were fried, and she's completely invisible now. No one can see her, and she's paralyzed. Not some great addition. So, yeah. And as someone tries to pick her up, no one can find her. As the spot where she was standing, just no one could find her. And as Himiko starts trying to shock people, All Might gets in the way of one hitting Izuku, as All Might gets shocked with it and gets blown back into a building, and he starts coughing out blood and says, that was rough. One for all, 100%, as he powers up fully, as Izuku could feel the sheer pressure of his strength at that time, as Himiko says, I just feel I shouldn't have this power. But why not? As she makes one massive bolt of lightning and shoots it at All Might. But as All Might tries to catch it, it goes through his hand, and his entirety of his insides get electrocuted with all the force of the lightning. As All Might nearly explodes he does explode in a corpse, a bloody corpse, as all the students scream, as Izuku also does, and he closes his eyes, but when he opens them, he wakes up and says, where am I? I was just there. What is happening? I don't understand. As the girl from earlier just says, I love this new quirk. I'm so happy Boss Man gave me the quirk. Genjutsu. As you guys should know what that does. Or if you don't, what it does is it creates an illusion, and the person, if it's a high enough quality, won't even recognize that it is one. And Izuku says, you're her. How dare you kill All Might? As she's interested in what kind of genjutsu he saw, as he makes 200 clones, and they absolutely beat her to a pulp. But Izuku was bloodied with tons of stab marks that had slowly healed, as he had no reaction, but he then winces out in pain, as there was 30 knives lodged into his back as he falls to the ground quickly, as the police arrive shortly after that to find a unconscious schoolgirl along with Izuku with 30 knives in his back, unconscious, with blood pouring out slowly. And when he wakes up in a hospital, as a recovery girl was there, as she says, "You're awake? Oh my. You're very lucky to be alive, sir. You should have died easily. There was 30 knives lodged very far into your back. In fact, one of your lungs had even been pierced. You're super lucky. Well, now you just have to recover. As Izuku winces out in pain as he tries to move his arms, as he makes 10 clones around him, and they all fuse into him, making their recovered state into him. As he says, oh, that feels a lot better. As he rips all the stuff out, crying out in agony, as he rips out the needle. As one of the nurses says, what is it? As Izuku quickly puts another clone into him and says, relax. I have a quirk that helps me heal. And she's, oh, okay. Well, I guess you can be on your way, sir. But your parents are in the lobby, so you should greet them. And they did tell me your first day of UA high school is tomorrow. Good job on that. As Izuku says, first day? What? But I had already done it. As she says, oh, so the doctor was right. As the nurse says that and walks away. As little did Izuku know, that was also a villain. And, in fact, the copy gun I told you about early in the story, yesterday, Izuku actually, didn't notice that during the genjutsu, she shot him with that gun, and she had injected herself with that quirk. But she dressed up well enough to get one of the nurses' blood, and you see, that was her Himiko, the real version. The clone, one of the clones, was in the hospital still. But when she is supposed to get arrested, puffs into smoke. As Izuku is told this by the guy at the front desk. And as Izuku said, oh my, that's a lot to take in. She had a copy quirk. I'll find her. As he starts running and sees his family, but then he bumps into the nurse. As the blood at that same time ran out, as it reveals Himiko again. But as she's about to put him under a genjutsu, with his strongest kick ever, knocks her out in one kick to the side of the head. As she falls onto the ground, the cops quickly run over and says, stand down, as Izuku steps back as she's arrested. And as she's unconscious, she's taken into a police car and sent to Tartarus, where the cops just... She didn't have time to do anything because all her quirks are canceled by the quirk canceling handcuffs. Okay. We are at 40 minutes, which is amazing, people. Good job. Yeah. So, we have 20 more minutes to, recovery arc, as I'll call it. As Bakugo arrives at the lobby too and says, I was worried about you, stupid Deku. Don't make me do it again. As Deku chuckles as Hisashi and Inko quickly run up to Izuku and hug him. As Izuku says, don't worry, I'm fine, Mom. And she says, you better be, Izuku. Don't scare me like that again. As Izuku says, yeah. And, that's like the end of the Chronicles of Himiko. I'm sorry for making such a underwhelming character strong, but, she kind of has the perfect quirk for it. Shape-shifting and, cloning. That's, like, the perfect combination, guys. Just saying. So, yeah. After that, he's discharged for 7 days. And after the first day, he just goes to UA. And the same exact thing happens. He has the same interactions, which he feels is weird. And the same thing for the next day. But then, where they had met Himiko, as Izuku tries to sucker punch Uraraka, Uraraka catches it and says, "What are you trying to do?" As he says, "I'm testing," as he kicks her in the face, and nothing falls off, and she says, "That hurt." And Izuku says, "Okay, good. You're not her." As All Might comes over to them and says, "Is there something wrong here?" As Izuku says, "No, something happened when I was in the hospital yesterday." As All Might says, "Well, if you could, share to the class." As he says, "Oh, okay. Well, yesterday, when I was on my way to the first day of UA High School, well, at least that's what I thought. I was actually wrong, but I ran into a replica of the high school that was under someone's control. And little did I know, when I went into a chair that was guided to me by a girl that looks similar to the brunette that I punched. Sorry. Well, she quickly disheveled her skin, and it was revealed to be a psychopath in a schoolgirl outfit who was arrested yesterday also. I made sure of it. Well, she tortured me, but I never knew it because she put me under something called a genjutsu. And I played these exact moments from yesterday all up to now and today. And when I finally got out of that, well, I was nearly dead. I had 30 knives lodged in my back. Far. I should be dead. Very dead. But my recovery quirk, well, my clone quirk, helped me survive. But I don't trust you anymore, as he points to Uraraka. And she says, understood. I'm accepting of that now because the fact that that's happened to you twice now, correct? As Izuku says, what do you mean No. As All Might says, what is it? As Izuku said, this only happened once. What do you mean twice? As Uraraka smirks, and Izuku then wakes up from his dream, and he was sleeping. In fact, he had slept through the entire first half of the second day. As Izuku says, I am not doing that again. Why is my day restarting? As Inko is shaking his bed violently and says, Izuku, wake up! As he looks to her and says, what is it? As she says, half of your second day at UA High School has been slept through. Get there now. As he says, understood, ma'am, as he quickly runs his way towards UA High School, making sure it was actually UA. And arrives outside to where his entire class was. And All Might says, well, you're not late. Good. Well, time to draw lots. Yeah, I just remembered it on the spot. Time to draw lots to see who you'll be facing. Well, I guess you'll be on Team F, young Midoriya. As Izuku says, oh, okay. And Izuku was very cautious of the brunette now. So cautious. He didn't trust her in the slightest anymore. Any trust left evaporated. So, when they got into the building, finally after the countdown, and they were facing Ida and Bakuga. Ida Tenya and Bakuga Katsuki. Katsuki Bakuga. So, as they start walking down the corridor, Bakugo quickly rushes towards them, along with Ida under him, as Bakugo and Ida pincer him with a upper axe kick and a axe kick itself into Izuku, as Izuku falls to the ground, wincing in pain at his jaw and forehead, as Uraraka is kicked in the side by Ida as she flies into a wall, as Izuku takes a glance to see if she was Himiko, but she wasn't. And Himiko had just never seen him. She was still with the League, not in Tartarus, but never seen Izuku. So, Izuku looks over towards Bakugo and says, "I'm tired of playing nice today," as he spawns 1,000 clones and says, "Army expansion jutsu," as it turns into 10,000 as they quickly touch the bomb, as Izuku and the other Izukus tackle the two to the ground quickly. Around 10 for each, as Bakugo tried getting up with his explosion quirk, but another 10 piled on him. Yeah, they fell unconscious from being smothered almost. And that was a rough second day, okay? I'm just saying. That was like the worst possible second day one man could have. Don't worry, the rest went the same. And I will dip into into day 3 just a little, because I do want to save some of USJ for part 3, because I'm going to try and fit it into 5 total parts, but I will see if I can get the USJ done also, because I do want to, because that'll be season 1 fully done from part 1 and 2, and then we can address season 2, which is all of the internship and the sports festival, for episode 3. Episode 4 will be season 3 with summer training camp and all for one arc, and probably a lot more in there, along with in part 3s. And in part 5 we'll be addressing season 4, and probably being a lot shorter of a video, honestly. Yeah, I do just want to pull out that message. Okay, we're at 48 minutes. I'm getting kind of sad now, because I have to extend this enough towards 60 minutes, an hour, because looks good for the YouTube algorithm, and hopefully, which is my dream on YouTube, to finally be one of the people recommended in when you search up What If Deku. I want to be at the top of that someday. Get a good hit. But alas, I can't. I mean, it sucks, but everyone has their times of glory. And clearly on TikTok was my time of glory, sadly. If you guys want that, look at my About section on my channel. You'll see my link to TikTok. Anyways, back onto the What If. As Izuku wakes up the next day and checks the calendar, and it says, finally, day 3 of UA High School. And Izuku gets dressed and all that, as usual, and walks to UA, exactly where it should be. Still not trusting the brunette at all. In fact, he kind of hated her, giving so many bad memories yesterday. So, when he arrives, he's greeted by Uraraka and Ida, who considered him a nice person, as Izuku just said, "Get away from me, brunette." As Uraraka, who he told the story to, understood, and kept her distance to because he clearly didn't trust her in the slightest at all, because he'd been bamboozled 3 or 4 times yesterday by Uraraka, turning out to be Himiko Toga. So, as Izuku and his friends finally, arrive at the class, Aizawa says, "Well, today, students, we'll be going to that field trip I told you about on day 1. Well, at least the people who weren't 15 minutes late," as he looks at Izuku and glares. As Izuku says, Sorry. I got caught off guard, okay? I didn't realize that I would be attacked. Wait a minute. Yeah, I'm sorry. And do keep in mind, guys, day 1 did actually happen, but Himiko escaped. So whatever I said about them never meeting, they very much did. And Uraraka was on guard too, because she didn't want her blood being stolen. Don't ask how she knows. She just does. So yeah. And as Izuku and everybody shuffled onto the bus, and as they start their slow drive towards the USJ unforeseen simulation joint. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to extend it. It's hard, but for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you to everyone who thinks I'm the comfort streamer, by the way. I don't think so. I'm very sleep deprived right now, and quite bored. Enough of my ranting. As Suyu starts discussing quirks with everybody, and as they share stories around, she says, "Well, I could never see Bakugo becoming a top hero. After all, he'd have no fans at all." As Bakugo pipes him and says, "What do you say about me, frog?" As she says, "I know what I said. Especially the number 1 hero. People would hate you. You'd basically yell at your fans and curse at them. Not good for the younger ones." As he just looks away and says, "Whatever." As she then looks at Izuku and says, "But that clone quirk of yours, Izuku, is very awesome. It has so many uses, too. You can replenish almost anything. So you could survive without food forever." As Izuku said, "Yeah, I could even reduce age of my clones so I could younger myself. Or even deepen my age." As Suyu looks shocked and says, "That is very handy." As then they arrive at the USJ. As Izuku smiles and says, "That took so long." And yeah, so when Aizawa gets them all to shuffle off of the bus finally. Fine, I will check. 54 minutes, let's go. I can't wait for me to be at 59:25. That'll just hurt me. That's gonna hurt me so hard. I'm sorry, guys. So, Izuku and everyone shuffle off the bus, and 13 then introduces herself, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, that's a rescue hero, 13. And Uraraka especially geeks out about this because she always wanted to be a rescue hero. Yeah, it was her thing. So, as 13 says, "Well, at the unforeseen simulation joint, short for USJ, we'll be doing rescue training, as you'd imagine, with me being here." As Aizawa says, "Well, 13, they're yours." "Well, I'll take a coffee break. See you kids in a couple minutes." As he jumped off. As 13 says, "That's a little, interesting." as they walk into the USJ. And as they all shuffle in, 13 says, oh, okay, so now that you're all here, let's start. As they start walking down the stairs, as 13 then spots a purple portal in the middle. Except there was two. One was a black portal. Smiley face. As Izuku, shocked, says, wait a minute. I've seen a black portal before. That's him. That's as a man in a black suit walks out and says, all for one. As Izuku at the same time says it. And Izuku says, weren't we supposed to have All Might today also? As 13 says, oh yeah. As she touches the button for immediate help. As 13 sends that to All Might, and he gets in and says, what is it, 13? As 13 says, All for One is here and in front of the class right now. As All Might is shocked and immediately bolts and is immediately in front of the class. As All Might says, All for One. As All for One says, All Might. Well, happy to have such an easy way to defeat you now. I just have to use your students as bait. As the rest of his little army appears. The normal guys from the USJ attack with Shigaraki and the Nomu too, except there were a couple other Nomus that were, extremely similar to the other one. But one could fly, one could shapeshift also. But other than that, they had the same exact abilities. So there was two more. As All for One says, go my pets, attack! As all of them charge at All Might, and Izuku makes 100 clones to help All Might. And, those take out goons, and even takes out Shigaraki with 10 of them helping. And Shigaraki gets knocked down towards All for One's feet, unconscious, as he says, well, that pesky kid. As his, All for One, finger blades come out and destroy all the clones, as it's about to hit Izuku, but he pops a clone in front of it, and the clone takes the hole to the chest. As All Might is fighting all three Nomus, having a really hard time, but at the same time, definitely a better time, because, he actually has one for all, technically. Okay, we're at 58:35. This is like an ongoing journey. As All Might gets knocked back, and Izuku says, All Might! As All Might turns around, and Izuku sends 100 clones right in front of All Might, taking a massive punch from all three of them at the same time into them all. As the wind pressure had to be used as 100 meat shields of the clones for All Might. As All Might says, thank you, kid. As Izuku says, yeah, as All for One kicks him straight through the glass. As Izuku was sent flying, and he had to use 10 clones to cushion his fall, splattering their lungs, basically. As Izuku lands unconscious in the middle of right outside the USJ. And as heroes were slowly arriving, they couldn't do much against the two Nomus that were guarding outside, along with Kirigiri. So as a police battalion arrives along with Snipes and a couple more heroes, the students are cowering inside still, because they had to deal with a lot weaker Nomu, but one that could spawn others, but not like the one in Season 4. So, All Might continues fighting all three, but then he uses United States to smash and hits one out and says, finally, as he jumps back and they continue their assault, as Izuku eventually does get up after a couple minutes, barely, and walks back into the USJ, slipping past the Nomus. As Izuku looks at his classmates, who were bloodied and beaten, because one of the Nomus decided to fight the students instead of All Might. As this annoyed All For One, but All Might managed to defeat that Nomu that was just fighting against him. But all the students had nearly been all knocked unconscious, along with being bloodied and beaten up completely. And this saddened All Might dearly, as he immediately one-punched the Nomu out of the USJ. As Izuku says, "That it? Take this!" As 1,000 clones charge at All For One. As All For One is about to make a massive wind pressure blast, he's punched in the face by All Might into the clones as they all start to beat on All For One. But he quickly makes a shockwave around him. As Izuku smiles as he's knocked into the fountain, which was all the way down at the stairs, which they were fighting like right on the stairs. Keep that in mind. As Izuku is penetrated by the tip of the fountain. As Izuku says, "Great, this again." As he quickly shakes himself off as he breaks off from the thing. Oh, okay. And yeah. So as Izuku quickly jumps back and says, "Take this! Super Jutsu!" As that, people, is where we'll be leaving off as for like a cliffhanger. So yeah, this is Keto signing off. Goodbye.